Welcome to My Life Chassidus Applied, episode 421. This program is dedicated and a merit of Baruch ben Yamin ben Menucha Lena and Miriam bas Chaya Sarah Altes, Yekusil ben Leah Rochel and Rochel bas Liba Farkash, dedicated by Pinchas Todus ben Miriam and Sarah bas Rochel Altes. I hope everybody had a wonderful, meaningful, and powerful holiday. When I say by holiday, we mean the entire Meruba B'Moedes, the rich holiday season of Tishrei, beginning with Rosh Hashana, Simchas Torah, Yom Kippur, the 4 days between Yom Kippur and Sukkos, Zman Simchosenu, Hoshana Rabbah, Shminas Atzeres, and finally Simchas Torah. All of it makes up a mosaic that addresses every aspect of the human psyche, both from the seriousness and awe of the days of awe, the reverence of Yom Neroim, to the other side of the coin, which is the joy of Sukkos. And they complement each other, as we discussed in previous programs and as discussed in Chassidus. And all this comes after the preparation of an entire month of Elul, which is also filled with and saturated with the revelation of the 13 attributes of compassion. Alter Rebbe explains with the example of the Melech Basada, the king in the field, why there's still weekdays. But that only adds to the power that even in the weekdays we experience such high revelations. And in truth, the Jewish calendar is not one that ever is static. It's a constant flow, because Elul comes after the month of Av, and it's actually rebuilding the relationship after it was severed, or in some way concealed, due to the building of the golden calf. The story of our connection with the divine, with transcendence, with God, our shortcomings and our faults, betrayal, and then rebuilding and making an even stronger relationship. Moshe Rabbeinu was on the mountain for 80 days and comes down in Yom Kippur with his second tablets and forgiveness and hope for the future. So the lessons are many, and now we are in the process of what the Rabbeim call Fanander Packen de Peklach, to unpack the bundles, to unpack the treasures that we received throughout this season. Shabbos Bereshis, which we're coming from, is like an interface. It's the last Shabbos of Tishrei, but also blesses the month of Cheshvan. So as we go into, we'll call the less revelatory days, where in Cheshvan you don't have any holidays, but we're not coming unprepared. We come filled with an arsenal of tremendous spiritual, psychological, emotional resources to give us the power to deal with any challenge that we have. And that's how we have to look at this time of the year. A time when we were able to receive so much, and now we unpack, we unfold, and internalize all that we've received into our personal lives. And for each person has to be customized according to exactly where we are, because each of us is unique. Though we have many things in common, but we also have things that are unique. Just like we say, Chanech nar al pi darkei, you educate the child according to his or her way. Each of us has b'chol moedecha, b'chol avavcha, b'chol nafshecha, b'chol moedecha. Your nefesh, your heart, all of you, your might. But it's yours individually. So what each one of us has to do is assess where we are, what we receive from these holidays, what our challenges are, and unpack it into that aspect. When you go on a journey, so after you come back from the journey, you unpack the luggage. The journey was in the month of Tishrei. We're still in that month, but we're now coming to the close of it, and the time to begin unpacking. And that's why the Rabbeim also announced and said that after Yom Tov, after Simchas Torah, the truth is there are many stages that Rebbe explained in many places, but especially in Tov Shelamet Ches, how there are different stages of a Yaakov Holach Darkei. That Yaakov went on his way, referring to each one of us. we go now on our way back home, back to our homes, each one to our home. And this doesn't just mean physically, also means spiritually, back to our daily routines, but not in a way that it becomes another routine, but it becomes elevated through that which we received. And it really comes down to the three key aspects of the high holidays, which is the newness, the renewal of Rosh Hashana, accepting ourselves, accepting our mission in life, the creation of the human being, Kabbalas HaMalchus, accepting the divine as our authority, not that we just follow our own whims, but we answer to a higher authority. That's what's called having a mission. You're on a mission in life. You're not on your own. You were sent on a particular mission, and that's the greatest dignity a human being can have. The sanctity of Yom Kippur and its uniqueness, its singularity, you can say, the Achaz Bashana, the Yechida, reaching the deepest part of our own sanctity, our own most intimate place, the Yechida Shebenefesh, bringing sanctity in everything that we do, the Holy of Holies, where the holiest person and the holiest day enters the holiest place. So you have Zman, Mokim, and Nefesh, Elam, Shana, Nefesh, in all three areas, time, space, and man, soul, reach the deepest inner, eternal, sacred place, which means that life is not a mundane world on its own. We live in a mundane world, but it's a soulful experience that we're traveling through the mundane world in order to spiritualize it. And finally, the joy, the simcha, the joy of Sukkos, that all that comes an expression of a passionate and fervor and joy and fervor and excitement. And that's actually revealing that which was experienced in Rosh Hashana and Yom Kippur in a more state of reverence, the Gilu Barada, that the celebration was more couched and more enclosed in a state of reverence when we're standing in a state of renewal and accepting our mission and the sanctity, but now we celebrate through song and dance, and that celebration grows and reaches its apex on Simchas Torah. So each day of our lives, we need to experience that renewal. Every morning when you say Moida Ani. Moida Ani is essentially Moida Ani Melech Chai V'Kayim, Melech, like the Kabbalas Malchus of Rosh Hashana. Indeed, as Chassidus says, that in the holidays, in the Tishrei, like Tishrei is the same letters as Reshis, the head, like Rosh Hashana, the head, the central nervous system. So the holidays are not just detailed holidays, they're Moedim Klolim. Like the head, each one is a source for the energy of the entire year, just like the head is the source of energy for the entire body. The days of the year are like the limbs of the body. So the first comes the renewal and the acceptance of the mission, the Kabbalah Shel Malchus Shamayim. From Rosh Hashana, we unpack that through saying Moida Ani every day. When we sanctify ourselves, Asher Kedeshanu b'mitzvesa v'tzivanu, through any mitzvah, and in any particular way, that's bringing the sanctity, the Kedusha, and the Yechida of Yom Kippur and unpacking that into our daily lives. You do mitzvahs, but also even divrei reshus, even things that are so-called the neutral zone, the neutral areas of our lives, eating, drinking. Kol masecha l'shem shemayim b'chol derechecha de'eyu. That we take our maisim and we direct them and sanctify them. Chulin al taras hakedesh, kadesh asmach b'muterlach. That you sanctify even the things that are permissible. Not just do them, but you sanctify them. And finally, the simcha of Sukkos and all the way to Simchas Torah, we unpack the Ivdu Hashem b'simcha. Ivdu Hashem b'simcha, serving God with joy every day. So we have now, though we don't have the actual holidays, but we have their energy flowing into our beings, but we need to be cognizant and conscious of it. And when you do that each day, then every day becomes alive in a new way. It doesn't just another boring part of our routines and monotonous part of our structures, but they become elevated because we're unpacking this powerful energy of Tishrei into our lives. But it needs one thing, your effort, your work, keeping that in mind. So that's a summary of the period in which we are now as we leave the holiday season. And it's also an answer to the big question, How do we deal with the so-called post-holiday blues? Some people have that down, when the holidays are exciting and so on. I know for some, holidays can also be very difficult, a lot of hard work. That needs to be mentioned. But it also has that elevated state. But now, we go back into the routines and we want to stay inspired. And the way to stay inspired is by realizing that this energy does not go away. It's part of us, but you need to do something. And that's why each day we need to have a mini Rosh Hashana, a mini Yom Kippur, a mini Sukkos, so to speak. Just like Migdash Ma'at, a sanctuary, a microcosm, is a microcosm of the Beis Hamikdash, of the Holy Temple. The same is Rosh Hashana, Yom Kippur, and Sukkos throughout the year. So with that introduction, let's address a few questions, many that came in. I have to say, and this is actually a compliment to each one of you, that your questions are coming in far faster than I can respond to them, meaning faster and also in abundance. But I'll try my best. I received so many questions that this program, I was even thinking of doing a double program simply to address more questions, but we'll keep it to the usual hour and 10 minutes, hour, 15 minutes. But I do want to acknowledge that, and it's a good opportunity as we enter the new year to welcome those that are here for the first time listening to this program, or those that have been listening for a while or a short while. So as I said, even if you've been listening we're in the 9th year, it's always supposed to be renewed. Every day, every second is renewed energy. The perpetual creation that God creates in a perpetual way, as the Alter Rebbe explains from the Baal Shem Tov in the beginning of Sha'ar Yichud V'Amunah. So too, we have to experience such renewal, which goes back to the point of Rosh Hashana. So I want to thank you for your questions. Thank you for your comments. I'll read some of them and do some follow-up later in this program. And please keep them coming. Go to ChassidusApply.com, a dedicated website just to this program and other resources around Chassidus, applying Chassidus to our personal lives. So there's a forum where you can submit any question anonymously, completely confidential. No one knows where it came from because it's a forum, and that's our preference as well. You could obviously share your name or email address if you want a direct response, because we can't respond unless you tell us how to respond to you. And there as well, you'll find the archives of all previous programs, plus many resources. And I might as well also use this opportunity to invite you to a daily class I give in Ayin Beis, Hemshech Ayin Beis, the classic magnum opus, the Mount Everest, you can say, of Chassidus, the Primus Atera of the Rebbe Rashab. And you find all the details at ChassidusApply.com. Okay. So here are a few questions that came in. I'm just doing a select that capture the gist of most of the questions. What does it mean that after the Tishrei holidays we need to unpack the bundles? Another person wrote it, can Rabbi Jacobson explain what the Rebbe meant when he said after the Tishrei holidays we have to unpack the peklach? So I believe I just explained that. It's an expression from, I believe it originates from the Frierdiker Rebbe, but it's probably from previous Rabbeim. And the explanation is the peklach are the treasures and the gifts that we receive throughout the holidays. And unpacking it means internalizing it into our lives, as just explained. Another question. Dear Rabbi Jacobson, what are some of the second chance holidays the Torah gives for those who weren't able to maximize the full energy of or participate completely in the Tishrei holidays? I know there's a concept of Yom Kippur cotton, but is there also a Simchas Torah cotton or Simchas Torah Sheni? Is there another day where the energy of the day is drawn down by dancing? Can a person spontaneously dance for a few minutes after a weekday Shachris to make up for the lackluster Simchas Torah, if it was indeed that case? Okay. And the answer is, well, actual second chance holidays, we know Pesach Sheni is literally Pesach Sheni from Pesach Rishon, from the Torah itself. The idea of Nishtakim Farfal, that nothing is lost. There's always a second chance. And we learn from that in every situation that is. But to say halachically that there's a Simchas Torah Sheni, we don't put it in that language. But the concept, of course, exists. First of all, there's the idea of tshuva. Tshuva always means there's a second chance over anything. Anything that wasn't done completely, you can always complement and always complete. Secondly, as we just said with the Moedim Klolim, these are general holidays that are meant to be unpacked. Now, unpacking is one thing. If indeed you feel that wasn't completely done, and let's be honest, who did Rosh Hashana, Yom Kippur, Simchas Torah perfectly? Is there such a person? So we all can use more renewal and more sanctity and more joy. But even if you're aware of it, so obviously you have a whole year, because it's all about the relationship with God is not only in Tishrei, it's a whole year round. It's just that in Tishrei there's a surge. There's the Kiruv HaMoed al HaNitzutz, where the soul, each soul, is closer to him, is more revealed and more accessible. Karev says, Dirsha Hashem b'matzah karua b'yesei karev. It's a time when there are less layers, less blocks, less obstacles. But all year round we serve God, and God is everywhere and all the time. In Eid Milvade. So besides the fact that there's a second chance, so to speak, in anything to make it better, there's also the fact that the holidays actually give us strength to do it that way. And it strengthens the holidays as well. When you bring Rosh Hashana, your mini Rosh Hashana, into every Moed Ani, and every time you celebrate and renew the contract of your mission, you're strengthening the Rosh Hashana experience. And the same thing with Yom Kippur, the same thing with Sukkos. Yom Kippur cotton, interesting, yes, it's called Yom Kippur cotton, Erev Rosh Chodesh, which indeed is a form of a Yom Kippur. Every month we have that aspect. And you could say every month is also like the renewal of Rosh Hashana. Rosh Hashana is Rosh Chodesh, a new moon. And the idea of Simcha, joy, is also constantly being renewed. But Yom Kippur cotton is specifically spelled out. So that could be a discussion, why Dafki Yom Kippur cotton, why is there no Rosh Hashana cotton, Simchas Torah cotton, or Sukkos Ketano. But thank you for your question. And bottom line is, you could always make up. And more than that, we are obligated to actually draw from the energy. Remember, the Reish is there all year round. The body is always being fed by the head. The fact that whether we access it completely or not, that's up to us. I mean, actually, that's what a healthy person is, constantly drawing from the source, from the mind and the heart. And if something was, God forbid, compromised, you can always strengthen it, just like physical exercise draws more energy from the head and strengthens your muscles and your nervous system. The same thing in Ruchnis and spirituality, that we can constantly be drawing from that place. Dear Rabbi Jacobson, another question in this spirit. A note was being forwarded on social media quoting the Rebbe Rashab saying that the 48 hours of Shmini Atzeres and Simchas Torah should be highly treasured. Every moment is an opportunity to draw buckets and barrelfuls of material and spiritual treasures. And this is accomplished through dancing. Yes. My question is, I danced on Shmini Atzeres and Simchas Torah, so what happens next? Is the dancing itself the keli, the container, I need to receive these brachas, these blessings, or is there something additional I must do to make a container for these blessings? What do I do? What do I have to do now to see these brachas fulfilled with my physical eyes in a revealed manner in the physical reality we live in? So I believe I explained this as well earlier. I'll just sum it up. It's a beautiful quote, a powerful quote from the Rebbe Rashab, which captures this whole idea, especially about Shmini Atzeres and Simchas Torah. And I should add, even though the Rebbe Rashab doesn't say it, but in another Pisgum, it says that which we can accomplish Rosh Hashana Yom Kippur through tears, we accomplish Shmini Atzeres and Simchas Torah through joy. So you see the connection again of the whole month. So dancing is definitely a keli, because dancing expresses that exuberance, that joy, the celebration with Hashem and with the Torah, and that alone is a keli. But as we always know, firstly, every keli can always be broadened and expanded. So to say to dance and then go to sleep is not the kavanah. You have to also do other things. We have taryag mitzvahs. The ones we can do physically, the ones spiritually. And throughout the year we have our obligations. So if you really want to make a keli, you want to continue making keli. It's like a person who's in business doesn't just say, okay, I ran a marketing campaign or I did some other things and I sold a lot of product and I made money. He's not going to stop there. He's going to make more kelim. He's going to make more effort, more containers, more channels. That's number one. Number two is that dancing is no question on Simchas Torah. That's our mission, is to dance. That's the Avodas Hayom, the work of the day. Other days of the year, though they have to be saturated as well with joy, but every day has its Aveda. Kol yom v'yom avodah v'dita. Person has to go to work, so still they should do it with joy. But you can't always be dancing quite like we do dancing on Simchas Torah. So we take the Simchas Torah, as I said, we internalize it like a mini Simchas Torah in our days. But every day has its work. Just like there's the 6 days of the week, and Shabbos has its mission, its purpose. And same thing with other holidays. So that alone tells you that the kelim are not just dancing. Simchas Torah is through dancing. Shmini Atzeres is Simchas Torah. Now about seeing these brachas, we're going to talk about it more throughout this program because there are a lot of questions that came in about that topic. You pray, you don't always see results. So firstly, the fact that we don't always see results doesn't mean there are no results. It could be expresses itself in ways we don't always recognize till later. Secondly, it could be that we need more effort. Like we say about davening. Every prayer is answered, but sometimes you need to open more doors. So I would never become demoralized or in any way dejected by the fact that you don't see immediately the brachas. The Rebbe Rashab says, you dance, you can dance more. So as I said before, you can always add to it later in life, later in the year. But you did whatever you could do then. That created a channel, a container, a keli. And now we have to do more. And in general, that's the approach in a relationship, is you don't always say, unless I see results, I'm not going to commit more. Relationship is a relationship as it's like you have a relationship with your spouse, with your children. It's not conditional. You do this, I'll only do this if you do that, tit for tat. Relationship is a full-bodied experience, commitment to your mission. And that itself is the biggest simcha. In addition to that, very often we're blessed and we see the nachas and peiros. Many times people only see the things that they're lacking. But you have to also look at all the beautiful things, the things we take for granted at times. Every morning give a new life. Health, parnosa, nachas from children. Now, do we want more? Absolutely. Ask for more. Make more kelim. But we have to also be recognized that there are many blessings that are already happening. And just because it didn't happen in the level that you wanted to be, you wanted a lot more, but don't take for granted that which one has. At the same time, by all means, God should be, we can expect from Hashem everything. And it's a constant relationship of us doing what we have to do and can do, and in return, Hashem blesses us. Are there mysterious things that we can't understand? Absolutely. At the end of the day, there's one God. But look at the Jewish people. With all our challenges, we're here today, thousands of years later. Is that not the ultimate bracha? But again, I'm not suggesting stopping that we should satisfy with that alone. We're always looking for more. So when we say, Ezu Osher Samer Bechalke, we're talking about Gashmis. You should be happy with what the blessings that you have. But in Ruchnis, you're always looking for more. But the truth is that when you do more Ruchnis, also more Gashmis comes. More material comes. Okay. Why do we only dance with the Torah on Simchas Torah? Every time we take out the Torah on Monday, Thursday, and Shabbos, we should dance with the Torah. Besides the good energy and fun. Fun is the right word, but okay. Dancing is good exercise for those who ate too much cholent and sponge cake. Okay, I get the point. Okay, well, this is a question you can ask about every holiday. In Pesach, we celebrate Zman Cherusenu, when we transcend all our limitations and boundaries, going out of our mitzarim v'gvulim, from the word mitzrayim, our limitations, our constraints. But isn't that the Aveda all year round? And indeed, we say Zeichel Yitzis Mitzrayim. We're always remembering Mitzrayim every day, and in many mitzvahs and many different prayers. So the answer is that there's one period of the 7 or 8 days of the year when it's in full glory. That is the channel, the synod, the shar, the gate through which Chayr Hussein was coming into our lives. Because time is energy. And from there, we draw it into every other day. Like I said before about the holidays of Tishrei. So of course Simchas Torah is here with us every day. But at the end of the day, to make something special, there's a special time designated for it. And then Chanukah has its energy, Purim has its energy, as Shavuos has its energy, and every day and every holiday has its particular energy. But the other energies are also channeling then, but then it's through a different gate, through a different shar, a different channel. So we have to remember that life is multicolored, it's diverse. And yet within the diversity there's iskalos, there's interconnectivity with all the other holidays. And the fact of the matter is that we do take out the Sefer Torah from the Aron Kodesh, though we don't dance like Simchas Torah, but it should be done like everything with Simcha, and especially Torah. Because Hashem Yisharim Mesamche Leiv, it should be done with an upbeat spirit and so on. When we end the Sefer Torah, no matter when it is in the year, it's like Simchas Torah, we do dance. So everything has its time. Another point to be made is an expression in the Gemara, Imar Halal B'chol Yom is Kilu Mecharef U'Megadav. Someone who praises God like Hakhel. Why don't we say Hakhel every day for all the blessings? So it's considered like you're insulting God. What does that mean? Because you stop appreciating. If you hear someone say thank you every second, there's something wrong. Because then the real thank you is not appreciated fully. So saying Hallel is for unique, a special activity. Now you say, I always feel a unique connection to God. Fine, there's other ways to express it. But in a way, it takes away from the specialness of something if you do it constantly. Not just that tainuk t'midei ein a tainuk, that ongoing pleasure is not real pleasure, but it also becomes somewhat bland. Now you could ask, what about those tzaddikim that experience it every moment? Why can't they say Hallel every day? It's a good question, we can discuss it. But also relative to them, it's the same idea. So to say that I'm always experiencing the same high sounds good on one end, but also can start becoming somewhat, as I said, somewhat static. There is an element of chiddush that's necessary. That you experience a renewal on Rosh Hashana that you don't experience other times of the year. That doesn't mean you can't experience it in a microcosmic way, but that there's something unique. And that uniqueness, even in human nature, is special. That I'm waiting for a special day. Yes, every moment you're reborn anew. And yet your birthday is a special day. Same idea. And that's why we say, Taka, that the world was created, Yesh Ma'ayim, Bereishis Bara Lakim. First time was Chidush Gomer. Then every second God renews existence, but it's called Chidush HaYeshenus. Chidush HaYeshenus, which means renewing something the way it was. Like when we're renewed, we're not renewed like we're born like a newborn child. If you're 20 years old, you're renewed as a 20-year-old. The world remains the same world. However, the energy in the world is a new energy. So there's something to be said when something is actually completely new. And that's why you make Shechiyanu and other things. You don't make Shechiyanu because every second you renew. Why don't you say Shechiyanu? Because then you start appreciating that total renewal. Not to take away from the renewal that we have all the moments of our lives. Okay. So that covers somewhat post-Tishrei. Let's go to another category. And that is, let's talk about Hakhel. Something I wanted to talk about through Tishrei, but through the schedule, some of the programs couldn't be done because of Yom Kippur was all Sunday nights. The Rosh Hashana and Sukkos, and the last days of Yom Kippur. So let's talk about Hakhel. And then I want to go back to prayers and a few other related topics to the holidays, and hopefully we can cover even more than that. Let's see how far we can go with the time allowed to us. So, a few questions came in, but let's talk. Hakhel is this year. Hakhel is every 7 years. The year following Shemitah, the Torah says that on Hakhel, on Sukkos, that the Melech, king, all the community gathers, Hakhel Noshim, Noshim V'taf, the men, women, and children, and even the youngest children, and the Melech reads to them from Torah in order to what? To arouse and inspire them, L'yiras Hashem Elokechem Kol Yimei Chayim. They should stand in reverence and awe of God all their lives. Here again, you see the same idea. One second, aren't we supposed to have Yiras Hashem all the time? Ma Hashem Elokecha Shel Mi Makim L'yiras Hashem Elokecha. And yet, there's a special designated time, once every 7 years, following the Shemitah year. This is one of those years, Hakhel. Now, Hakhel was performed al Pitera in the time of the Beis Hamikdash and the Melech. Today, we don't have a Beis Hamikdash physical and a physical king, but the ruchnius of it is there, and the Rebbe has in many ways reawakened this mitzvah, at least a zecher to it. The Rebbe explains at length in many sichos that he spoke about Hakhel, why there's no zecher Hakhel, and actually like you have zecher to other things that happened in the time of the Beis Hamikdash. And actually, the Rebbe says it's even more than a zecher, because we're supposed to live it. So the idea is, just as everything in the Beis Hamikdash, just karbonas, tefillas became karbonas tiknum, prayers replaced offerings in the Beis Hamikdash, so that we should also experience Hakhel. And indeed, it has caught on in many places that Hakhel has become a year of more gatherings. So even though Moshe Rabbeinu designated there should be Hakhel Kehilas every Shabbos and Yom Tov, and that's one of the reasons there's farbrengens and gatherings on Shabbos and Yom Tov. But Hakhel has a special feature because every 7 years, this special power of this unity, and especially the emphasis on Noshim, Noshim V'taf, adds to really the unity of all segments of and all demographics. So, with all the value of it, Avos Yisrael, Achdus Yisrael, uniting toward dedicating ourselves to God, awe, reverence of the divine, has all those qualities. And the Rebbe encouraged every Hakhel year that we should create Hakhels not just on Sukkos, but throughout the year. So in a way, it became even stronger than it was in the time of the Beis Hamikdash. The Beis Hamikdash was also only done on Sukkos. But here's a Shnas Hakhel, it's a year of Hakhel, similar to Simchas Beis HaSheva, which was also only done the second or third day of Sukkos, as the Gemara explains. But it's Kalkalosan Zui Takanosan, that now we can begin from the first night, because since we don't have the Beis Hamikdash, so we're not doing it with instruments, and we can also extend it through the whole Sukkos. So basically, Simchas Beis Sheva is also similar, that the fact that we don't have the Beis Hamikdash actually expands the celebration. So a few questions that came in about this, let's just read them. What's the big deal about Hakhel? What does it mean? And what's the big deal about it? I see lots of signs all over the place, but it seems that's just another excuse for making speeches. What is it really about? Okay, like always, I always read letters exactly as they're sent. I rarely censor them unless it's something inappropriate or offensive. So, why? Because I want to hear, and I want everybody to hear the voice of people. People should feel comfortable. So though it's not a tone that I would have personally written or suggested, but it is the tone because obviously the person writing does not feel the relevance. The answer is it's not about speeches, and it's not another excuse. It's actually a beautiful, beautiful idea. I mean, if I were to say to you that you should come together with your family once in a while, even beyond holidays and Shabbos, and sit together and talk and tell stories and smile together and inspire each other and connect to God and the mission, you wouldn't say that's meaningless. That's really what Hakhel is on a more grand scale, more communal scale. But it also means on a personal scale. When the Rebbe spoke about Hakhel, he talked about in offices, getting together, the people working. We all know when you meet meetings, actually create a strength. Now, we're not talking about a business meeting, strategic meeting. We're talking about a meeting just to talk to each other, just to connect. So Hakhel is a connecting force, and that's a beautiful, beautiful concept. Unfortunately, like this person, I'm sure others have well, see it far more as something so superficial. But that's either due to the way they're experiencing it or the way it's being presented. But it can be presented in the most beautiful way. I mean, I can't see any downside. Yes, if it's misused or not used properly, fully, it can come across as something that's like meaningless. But that's true with everything. Shabbos and Yontif, Chaz v'Shalom, mitzvahs anoshim alamada, where you do things mechanically. But we have the opportunity this year, and the energy of this year, to create a tremendous force. And today, with technology, it gets even stronger. Because technology connects us even when we're separated in physical time and space. So you can have tremendous digital Hakhels, if you wish. It does not replace a physical one. But at the same time, the point is the unity of it. And the joining together toward one end, the Yiras Hashem Elokeichem. And something that will not just be for this year, but for entire lives. Such inspiration. Imagine coming to a gathering that inspires you in that fashion. Dear Rabbi Jacobson, if the main mitzvah during a Hakhel year was for everyone to visit the Beis Hamikdash to hear the king read from the Torah, how can we observe the spirit of this commandment without a Beis Hamikdash and without a physical king? We have been taught that we cannot build a third Beis Hamikdash by ourselves. We must wait for Hashem to do it at the right time He chooses. But can we elect a king and perhaps everyone can meet in Prospect Park and hear him read the Torah? Well, so as I said before, the Beis Hamikdash physically and all the activities that went on, we can't do most of that physically, but we can do it spiritually. It says, build for me, I will reside within you, within our heart and soul. We can make our home a Mikdash Ma'at, just like where Shul is a Mikdash Ma'at, a mini sanctuary. The same thing with the Melech. We don't have the Kohen Gadol either on Yom Kippur. And yet we say that there's the Kohen Gadol within each one of us. And just as the Kohen Gadol went into the Holy of Holies to pray and his prayers were fulfilled, we say Yehi Ratzon, and the Aveda of Yom Kippur should also be through our prayers. So there's the Melech within each one of us. It says, Kol Yisrael Melachim Hem, B'nei Melachim Hem. We're all kings or children of kings. So the idea can also be applied to each one of us, that you read the Torah to your family, to your community. Is it the actual mitzvah the way it was? No, it's not. But that it's a replica, if you wish, or a spiritual microcosm of it. In addition, people always saw the Rebbe as a melech, Vahi b'shur melech. Not getting into now whether legally a melech or not a legal melech, but the point is, a melech, a leader, a nasi. That's why Hakhel, so many more chassidim, many people came, visitors, to see the Rebbe. I remember hearing a story from Rabbi Tuvia Bloy that the Rebbe paid for his expenses to come for Hakhel. I think it was in Tavshin Lamed Beis was the year, was Lamed Gimel, Lamedal, I'm sorry, Tavshin Lamedal. Lamed Gimel was Shemitah, Lamedal was Hakhel. And the Rebbe wrote to him that there's a day, I think Minchas Chinuch, but a day that the mitzvah of Hakhel is on the Melech. So the Rebbe was alluding, that's why I'm paying for your expenses, for your coming here to New York. We have to look into more of the details of it, but the point being is that there is the concept, especially with the Rebbe. Now today, the Rebbe lives among us, Baruchni is for sure. So you can say many chassidim coming, many people coming to visit New York. Crown Heights was overpacked during the holiday season, and I'm sure during this year of Hakhel will be more than usual for the same reason. So not everything is exactly necessarily. We of course want the Beis Hamikdash Shlishi. We want the actual Melech HaMashiach here, physical king, Basar V'Dam, Neshama B'Guf, a soul and a body. But whatever we can do, the Ruchnius, we must do, as long as it's obviously within the parameters of Torah and Halacha. But the spirit of it, the spirit of a mitzvah, the mitzvah is a nitzchi zdika mitzvah, the mitzvah of Hakhel, the mitzvah of the Melech reading. And the idea of the Melech reading is because he's the leader that's reading the Torah for us. So that leads, that adds to the inspiration. So we have to access the Melech within each one of us, the Rebbe within each one of us, if you wish. In Parshas Vayelech, Moshe Rabbeinu says, every 8 years during Hakhel, we must go to hear the Torah being read by the king. The problem is we don't have a king of Israel today. We just spoke about that. Can we ask Okay, I don't know if this is a joke or what. Newly crowned King Charles III to read a portion of the Torah for us. It doesn't have to be a Jewish king. Well, al pi halacha, it has to be a Jewish king, first of all. Second of all, I don't know the category of king of King Charles, whether the actual king, al pi Torah or not. But regardless, it has to be a Jewish king. And for the obvious reason, we're talking about reading the Torah. We're not talking about just the respect that you have to a king or the bracha that you make. Again, you have to ask a local rabbi whether you make a bracha over the king or queen of England or other countries. But the point being is, just to go reiterating what I said before, the recreating of the king has to be al pi Torah, meaning a Jewish king who's going to read the Torah, and whether it's the king within us or the king that we symbolically look at as a rebbe or any leader, man malka rabbanon, is also have the name like king, so on, Arav. That's the way we have to look at it. Okay. Has the Rebbe ever said that a Hakhel year is the most opportune time for Moshiach to come? My recollection is that yes, and the reason being, because it says when Moshiach comes, Kol Gadol Yeshuv Heino. Kol Gadol, a great community, the same word like Hakhel, will return. So Hakhel has a direct connection, besides the fact that we know that just as the Beis Hamikdash, the second temple, was destroyed due to the opposite of Hakhel, sinas chinam, baseless hatred, so obviously when there's the baseless love, meaning unconditional love, it says Gula to rebuild the Beis Hamikdash and bring Moshiach. But if I recall correctly, the Rebbe did mention it several times. I don't remember if he said actually it's a Gula or opportune time, but he definitely connected it to Kol Gadol Yeshuv Heino, or Bibarerenu Biskanenu, like it was when we left Mitzrayim. Atam tluktu echad echad. The Eibishter will take everyone by their hand, each individual, and bring them together. Kibbutz Goliath, reuniting everyone. So Hakhel is exactly that theme. So definitely an opportune time, an opportune way to help speed up and bring the Geula, which is already overdue. Okay. So now there's a whole bunch of questions that came in. Just trying to follow, I'm going to try to prioritize. So this is one of those topics you don't like to talk about, but since it is a topic, and I get a lot of questions about it, may not be relevant to everyone, but I want to address it. And that's the topic of getting drunk on Simchas Torah. As the person writes it, follow up on alcohol on Simchas Torah. Dear Rabbi Jacobson, why do some feel that Simchas Torah must include getting drunk, and what can we do about it? And more specifically, dear Rabbi Jacobson, I hope you had a wonderful uplifting Yom Tov, and I'm looking forward to the resumption of the My Life Chassidus Applied classes. I've written previously about the heavy focus on alcohol consumption in our Lubavitch society, and while I do occasionally have a l'chaim, an odd choice of term for a substance that has killed many, I generally am able to enjoy the Chag without it. But I really abhor the idea that if you're not drinking alcohol, then your celebration of Simchas Torah is deficient. On Simchas Torah this year, two different people made similar comments to me that really got me thinking. At the Kiddush held at my shul, modern Orthodox, prior to Hakofis, I was drinking a glass of water. Someone approached me and said, "Hey, what are you drinking there?" I responded, "Water." He said, "Hey, you're not drinking a l'chaim." I said, "Yes, I happen at this moment to not be drinking alcohol that is known to kill people." He said, "Well, then I don't know if you're a real Lubavitcher Chassid." I responded, "Yes, I am not a real Lubavitcher. I gave up on that a long time ago." The man, visibly confused, turned and walked away. The next day on Simchas Torah afternoon, I was walking in the street with my children. A man who appeared to belong to the Chassidus community, not Chabad, was walking in my direction, whom I have never met, waved his hands to get my attention, and said, "Wow, it's Simchas Torah, and you're walking in a straight line?" I did not respond, but looked at him blankly. He said, "You're a Chabadsker. Don't you get drunk on Simchas Torah?" I glared at him and said, "I'm not a Chabadsker." This time it was his turn to be confused, and he walked past me. I said sternly, "I did not appreciate that comment, especially in front of my children. Have a good Yom Tov." So first of all, kol hakavod to all of us for projecting the message to the Jewish world, from modern Orthodox to Chassidus, that a Chabad Chassid gets drunk on Simchas Torah. Well done. Obviously, this is said facetiously. But really, though, are these people correct? Am I really not a proper Chassid if I do not drink l'chaim at every spare moment and I am misrepresenting my community if I walk in a straight line on Simchas Torah? Obviously, I know the answer, but honestly, what went wrong in our chinuch and the way we project ourselves to others, that the association of Chabad and Simchas Torah is one of alcoholism and drunkenness? I know these two individuals were speaking in jest, but as someone who takes pride in being an active father and Shul Klei Kodesh team member on Simchas Torah, I feel it is sad that people outside our community have a hard time believing a sober Lubavitcher can exist on Simchas Torah. What can we do to fix this problem? Thank you, and wishing you a wonderful year ahead. Well, I agree totally that it is a problem. Even when Chassidim said l'chaim, in the best times, before the Rebbe made the Gzeda, that should be clearly spelled out. A Gzeda, a decree. He called it a Gzeda, not to drink more than 4 cups. And he didn't say Simchas Torah was an exception. There were times the Rebbe made exceptions, but there were a few times only. That means other times were not an exception. So even before that, when Chassidim drank l'chaim, it was never an end in itself. Was that to get drunk? That's like Hepech HaTorah in every possible way. To lose sober, to not be sober, to not think straight. The idea of simcha, when we say Ad lo yoda, chayiv inish l'psuma and purim, Ad lo yoda ben Harur Haman and Baruch Mordechai, was not meant that you become crazy and reckless. That was a state higher than the rational structures of existence, a state of transcendence. And it was always seen as a means to an end. So first of all, it was about getting more transcendent, not getting high, not getting drunk, and not becoming less inhibited, but to connect to a deeper place. And secondly, it was a means. There's a whole passion that Torah Nachle that says not like Nadav and Avihu, for all the good intentions, and they were tzaddikim. B'gdeshei, they're called. As Moshe Rabbeinu told Aaron, that he thought B'gdeshei HaKarev would be him and Moshe and Aaron, but it was actually Nadav and Avihu. And as the Eir HaChaim explains, that their passion and their love and their yearning and longing was what drove them to go into the Kodesh Kodashim. But they went in drinking with good intentions, but it became somewhat of an end in itself. So it says how you're supposed to enter Hakhel. There are conditions, because it's not meant to become frivolous. It's a very powerful force, and it's not about shikurim and drunkenness. It's about transcendence at best. And that too only as a means to an end. This was always what was known. Once the Rebbe made the Gzeira, without getting into all the explanations, but one is very clear, that it's misused. Drinking has become a social thing. It's a social interaction. There's nothing to do with Chassidus, with Torah, with God. People having fun. So how is it different than just any type of social interactions? People just taking cocktails or drinking stamazeh. And unfortunately, it has seeped into this society. And it's important I'm not the person that likes to get up, I'm going to make a protest, because I don't know if that's going to make the help. But we have to set the record straight for sure. Chassidus Chabad, the Chabadsker, the Lubavitcher, is about bringing Moshiach. It's about revealing godliness in this world. About making a dira b'tachtenim. Being a Chassidish Yid. A person who goes lefnim Meshur Sadin. Ahavas Yisrael in abundance. Occasional l'chaim that helps in that direction. It's one thing. And yes, you could dance Simchas Torah without saying l'chaim. There's nowhere it says that the only way to dance on Simchas Torah. We said before, the Frierdiker Rebbe Rashab said through the kudim. That's what he said. Through dancing, you access those treasures, those barrels of treasures of Shmini Atzeres and Simchas Torah. So whenever I hear or read anything like this, right away, it's painful to hear, because also this misconception, which is incorrect, and especially knowing the Rebbe's attitude. Anyone was by Hakofas, by the Rebbe, Simchas Torah, wasn't that people drank, that was on their own cheshbon, it was not necessarily always correct. But Hakofas was driven by the dancing, the exuberant dancing, the ecstatic dancing. everyone being lifted up to another time and to beyond time and space in ways that are even hard to describe. It was a Ruchnisdik experience. It was a Shras Ashchina. That's what it was. It wasn't a Holanker, a Chemona Litzlan. That's what needs to be conveyed to the world, as much as possible. So, that addresses that. Okay, let's take the next section of this program and just talk about, let's see, what do I do? Let's do some follow-up. That's what we'll do. So let's do some follow-up. I don't want to be anonymous. I was blown away by your most refreshing interview and your ideas. Thank you. This person is writing about an interview I did right before, I believe, between Rosh Hashana and Yom Kippur, about how to maximize the use of these holidays, especially for our young. So the person continues to write, I wish to add that in Israel, where I live, our young people need to be groomed to the leadership positions which you believe young people can attain. If you won $1 million, I hope you would invest it in Israel, where we need a David HaMelech to lead us with Jewish values and pride. Gamach Simateva, what a pleasure you have given me before Yom Kippur. And being that this person asked not to be anonymous, I will make an exception and read the name, Judith Neuberger. That's by request of the person that wrote this. Okay. There's some more follow-up, quite a lot. I don't know if I can cover it all, but let me just do another few. This is about traveling to Rosh Hashana for Uman. Hi, Rabbi Jacobson. You spoke in your show about whether or not we should be going to Uman on Rosh Hashana. I want to relate my experience there. I'm from Crown Heights, and 11 years ago, a friend convinced me to go with him to Uman. There are a lot of positive and negative things that go on there. The negatives are the expense of the trip, the anti-Semitic attacks by local skinheads, petty thefts of your stuff by thieves who break into your room while you're in shul, drugs. I'm not going to read all the things here that he writes. Mafia-controlled taxis, corrupt, bribe-demanding cops, and so many other things. None of those negative things affected me. Just like sending our teenagers to Israel to yeshiva, if the kids have the right attitude, they will have a great year of learning. The wrong attitude, and unfortunately, can lead to things that aren't positive. I went with a positive attitude to Uman, and I wanted to have a successful year by davening Rosh Hashana in a new place and in a different style, so I could tap into a new and different positive energies that I didn't have in New York. I felt the energy in Uman on Rosh Hashana, felt like the energy of Simchas Torah. I had the best davening ever in my life. The following year, some amazing blessings happened for me at my job, and my parnasa increased a lot. Do I attribute this to my time in Uman? Quite possibly, yes. Could I have achieved the same results if I stayed in Crown Heights and davened extra hard? Also, quite possibly, yes. I'm not saying everyone should go to Uman. That's everyone's personal decision, if it's the right thing for them. But if someone plans to go, please first speak to someone who has been there before to teach you how to survive there. What you must bring along and what you should never, ever bring along. Don't attempt to bring anything illegal into Ukraine. The authorities would love to find a reason to arrest you in the airport. Follow all local laws. Don't leave valuables in your tent or rented room. Keep valuables and passports in a backpack which you wear 24 hours a day wherever you go. And most importantly, go with the attitude of increasing in Kedusha. If someone is not able to go, then wherever you are in Rosh Hashana, when you finish davening, sing a song and dance with your friends for a few minutes, as if it were Simchas Torah. Simcha Peretz Geder. Have a sweet New Year, everyone. As I said, this is a platform for people to write to, so by no means am I endorsing what this person said or am I criticizing it. I did say my comments about Uman, especially for Bavitcher Chassid, but like the Rebbe Rashab said, he didn't like people who say Pshetlach and Tanya, but if it adds in Yiras Shamayim, he didn't mind. If a person, especially after the fact that added in someone's Yiras Shamayim, I don't think I'm going to go criticize that. But nevertheless, I would say that yes, you should be able to find it in your kreis, in your Rebbe, in your Chassidus, but no one taking away from anyone that gets inspired. God forbid, I would never say that, and I'm not saying that now either. So thank you for your comments. Okay. Creating change in your life. Dear Rabbi Jacobson, thank you for sharing your experience about the reluctance on your part to take your first dive into a pool as a young child. So I spoke about a few weeks ago about when you go from one state to another, getting out of your comfort zone, there's a reluctance because it's a new experience. So I gave the example of my fear of diving into water, if you recall. Anyway, this person is referring to it. Do you think that what you were describing was your experience with being in a liminal space, going from then and then to, from sitting on the side of the pool and transitioning toward the actual dive? So he's introducing a concept called liminal space. Here is some information about the idea of liminal space, which was taken from a website called inaliminalspace.org. Liminal is from the Latin word limen, which means threshold. A liminal space is the time between what was and next. It's a place of transition, a time of waiting and not knowing the future. The problem is, a liminal space does not typically feel good. Perhaps the experience of liminal space, the being on the threshold, occurs not just on a solitary micro level, as in a younger diver's experience, but also on a massive societal scale. As you mentioned, we live in a time of disruption. Is it possible that these times that we live in are actually a divine liminal space? The title of your recent master class is Look Back, Move Forward. The liminal space, the threshold, resides between looking back and moving forward. Herein, I believe, is the beauty of Hashem giving us free choice, the choice to move forward. And as we move forward into the new year, I'm sending you and your staff a thank you for all the wisdom shared through the Meaningful Life Center, and wish you all a Shana Tova. Be well. Yeah, thank you for that. I did not hear about this idea before, liminal space. But there's no question, what Chassidus says, yesh, ayin, yesh. That to go from one paradigm to another, you have to go through a place that's uncomfortable. That's why it's uncomfortable, because it's not an extension of the past. So actually the discomfort is actually a litmus test, a sign of true movement. That would be a perfect explanation of the transition where we are now from Tishrei into Cheshvan. I remember in Tavshin Nun when the Rebbe spoke why Cheshvan has no holidays, not one. Only month in the year has no holidays. In stark contrast to Tishrei, which is Meruba, filled with holidays. Why would it be such a radical jump? It should be a little more, a transition should be smoother. One holiday, a few holidays. And the Rebbe explains, because that's the ultimate test of Lech Lecha, the ultimate test, where we see a person in a completely new state. If there was one holiday, it would still be somewhat an extension of Tishrei. You want to take a person into a new reality, and they're drawing from Tishrei into Cheshvan. You want to put them now, they know nothing that is similar to the previous month, holiday-wise. And see, how are you then? Well, you don't have that so-called, I don't want to call it crutch, but that oasis, if you wish, or that's something to lean on. So that's the best proof. When you take a neshama away from heaven, you send a neshama below, it's in a place that completely forgets the Torah it learned in its mother's womb. Doesn't remember the Ruchnisdik worlds of Gan Eden where their soul originates from. Because dafke here, through that, then you really see what a person is made of. If there was one memory or one connection to the past, you wouldn't be able to see that, the greatness and strength that we have. So we're in a place where sometimes we feel no revelation. That can be the greatest blessing. That gives you the opportunity to actually experience something completely new. A new paradigm, a new experience, both personally and both globally and societally, as this individual wrote. That's what the Geula is. That comes from Golus. Okay. Okay, with that, I believe I'm going to conclude this program. Let me see if there's... Well, let me put it this way. There are many other questions. I was going to do more, but it's always... There's always more than you can handle. So I'm going to stop here, and I'll leave some of the questions that, even though there's some holiday-based and some others, I'll leave for next week. Let me conclude with a bracha to each one of you. May it be a gebenchte Yar, Tovshin Pei Gimel, some call it Tei, Simcha Peres Geder, Shnash Simcha Peres Geder, Plois Gedolis, a year of abundance, Begashmius and Beruchnius. Tzlocha Mufloga, great success in everything you do, materially and spiritually, all in good health. Nachas from yourself and from your children. Again, all in good health. It should be a year of Geula. Finally, a Geula which will bring so many other blessings, all the other blessings. And Chassidus applied, as we begin the new year, is part of the effort of Yefutza Ma'inasecha Chutza. And Moshiach said to the Baal Shem Tov, that's the key. Asimar Dal Malka Mashiach, to bring in Mashiach. Everyone have a good week. We're here every Sunday, 8 to 9 p.m. And now we resume on a regular schedule after the Yom Tevim and drawing from the Yom Tevim into the year. A good Gebencht Yor and a good Tavach. Good week. Be well.
This program is brought to you by My Life, Chassidus Applied. Please help us continue our programs. Make even a small contribution at chassidusapply.com/donate.